Hi! Welcome back to Holy Time TV. Before we start, smash that subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. Abram, who later becomes known as Abraham, is a central figure in the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament. He is significant for several reasons. Founder of the Israelite nation, Abraham is considered the patriarch and founding father of the Israelite nation. God promises to make his descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and to give them the land of Canaan as their inheritance. Through his sons Isaac and Ishmael, he is also considered an ancestor of the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic faiths. Covenant with God. Abraham's relationship with God is characterized by a series of covenants or agreements. God first calls Abram to leave his homeland and promises to make him into a great nation. Later, God establishes a more formal covenant with him, signifying a special relationship between God and Abraham's descendants. This covenant is sealed with the rite of circumcision, which becomes a distinguishing mark of the Israelite people. Test of faith. Abraham's faith is tested when God asks him to sacrifice his beloved son, Isaac. Though anguished, Abraham obeys God's command and prepares to sacrifice his son. At the last moment, God intervenes and provides a ram as a substitute sacrifice, thereby demonstrating Abraham's unwavering faith and obedience. Model of faith. Abraham's life is often held up as a model of faith and trust in God. His willingness to follow God's commands, even when they seem inexplicable or difficult, demonstrates a deep commitment to his faith. This has made him an important figure in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as a spiritual ancestor and a model of faith for believers. Overall, Abram's importance in Genesis stems from his role as the founder of the Israelite nation, his covenant with God, and his unwavering faith and obedience, which serve as an example for believers in the Abrahamic faiths. Jesus can be seen as a descendant of Abraham, according to the genealogies provided in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. Both the Gospels of Matthew and Luke trace Jesus' lineage back to Abraham, although the genealogies differ in some details. The purpose of these genealogies is to establish Jesus' ancestry and to connect him to the promises made to Abraham and his descendants. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 1 verses 1 to 17, the genealogy starts with Abraham and goes through David, Solomon, and other kings of Judah, ultimately leading to Joseph, who is described as the husband of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Matthew's genealogy emphasizes Jesus' connection to the Abrahamic and Davidic covenants, presenting him as the fulfillment of God's promises to Israel. In the Gospel of Luke chapter 3 verses 23 to 38, the genealogy is presented in reverse order, starting with Jesus and going back through Joseph, David, and Abraham, all the way to Adam. This genealogy emphasizes Jesus' connection to all of humanity, presenting him as the Savior of all people, not just the Israelites. Though the genealogies in Matthew and Luke are different in some respects, they both establish Jesus as a descendant of Abraham. This connection is significant because it ties Jesus to the promises made to Abraham and his descendants in the Hebrew Bible, and it also emphasizes Jesus' role as the fulfillment of those promises for Christians. Genesis chapter 12 verse 2 is a key verse in understanding the importance of Abram, later renamed Abraham, in the biblical narrative. The verse reads, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." This verse highlights several crucial aspects of Abraham's role and significance. Divine promise. In this verse, God is making a direct promise to Abram, establishing a unique and special relationship between them. This promise is the foundation of the covenant between God and Abram, which is later extended to his descendants. Great nation. God promises to make Abram into a great nation. This is a reference to the future Israelite nation, which would emerge from Abram's descendants. Through this promise, Abram becomes the founding father of the Israelite nation and the ancestor of the Jewish people. Blessing. The verse emphasizes that God will bless Abram and that his name will become great. This blessing is not only for Abram but also for his descendants. The concept of blessing is an important theme throughout the Bible, and it is particularly significant in the Abrahamic covenant. Source of blessing for others. God states that Abram will be a blessing, indicating that he will not only receive blessings from God but also be a source of blessing for others. This idea is expanded in Genesis chapter 12 verse 3, where God says, "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." Through Abram and his descendants, God's blessings will extend to all nations and people, making him a central figure in the biblical narrative. In summary, Genesis chapter 12 verse 2 highlights the importance of Abram as the recipient of a divine promise and the forefather of a great nation. His role as a source of blessing for others and his connection to God's plan for humanity underscores his significance in the biblical story. God's promise to Abram, later renamed Abraham, in Genesis chapter 12 becomes a reality through several key developments in the biblical narrative. Abraham's descendants. God promised to make Abram the father of a great nation. This promise began to take shape with the birth of his son, Isaac, through his wife Sarah. Isaac fathered Jacob, also known as Israel, who had 12 sons that would become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. These tribes eventually formed the basis of the Israelite nation. The Exodus and the covenant at Sinai. The Israelites became a numerous people during their sojourn in Egypt. After generations of slavery, God raised up Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and into the wilderness. At Mount Sinai, God established a covenant with the Israelites, making them his chosen people and giving them the law, the Torah, as a guide for their lives. This event marked the formal establishment of the Israelite nation as God's people. The conquest of Canaan. Following the Exodus, the Israelites, under the leadership of Joshua, entered and conquered the promised land of Canaan. This fulfilled God's promise to give the land to Abraham's descendants. The establishment of the Davidic dynasty. King David, a descendant of Abraham, established a united kingdom of Israel and Judah. God made a covenant with David, promising that his descendants would always rule over Israel. This covenant is significant because it connects the Abrahamic promise to the future coming of the Messiah in the Christian understanding. Jesus Christ and the spread of Christianity. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ is presented as a descendant of Abraham and the fulfillment of God's promises. Through Jesus, the blessings promised to Abraham are extended to all people, as Jesus' life, death, and resurrection provide salvation for both Jews and Gentiles. The spread of Christianity throughout the world can be seen as a continuation of the blessing promised to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. In conclusion, God's promise to Abram in Genesis chapter 12 becomes a reality through a series of events in the biblical narrative, including the growth of Abraham's descendants, the establishment of the Israelite nation, the conquest of Canaan, the Davidic dynasty, and ultimately, the life and mission of Jesus Christ. The story of Abram, later renamed Abraham, in Genesis provides a foundation for Christian faith in several ways. God's faithfulness. The story of Abraham demonstrates God's faithfulness to his promises. God's promise to make Abraham the father of a great nation and to bless all people through his descendants is ultimately fulfilled through Jesus Christ, who is a descendant of Abraham. This reminds Christians of God's unwavering commitment to his people and his plan for salvation. Model of faith and obedience. Abraham's willingness to trust and obey God, even when faced with seemingly impossible or inexplicable commands, serves as an example of faith for Christians. His trust in God's promises and his obedience to God's commands offer valuable lessons for Christians in their own faith journey. Connection to Jesus. The genealogies in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke trace Jesus' lineage back to Abraham, connecting Jesus to the Abrahamic covenant and the promises made to Abraham and his descendants. This connection reinforces the belief that Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promises and the ultimate source of blessing for all people. Unity of the Bible. The story of Abraham in Genesis helps Christians understand the continuity between the Old and New Testaments. It demonstrates how God's plan for humanity, initiated with Abraham and his descendants, ultimately culminates in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. In summary, the story of Abraham in Genesis strengthens Christian faith by illustrating God's faithfulness, providing a model of faith and obedience, connecting Jesus to the Abrahamic covenant, and revealing the unity of the Bible. If you liked this video, don't forget hit that like button, and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this in the future. Also, be sure to turn on the bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.